Hello, my name's Unrollable, and today will be my first ever video, and my channel will be focused on dinosaurs. And to celebrate this being my first ever video, I thought I could be a bit creative. So instead of doing facts or fights about dinosaurs, I thought of something a bit more unique, something that's never been done before. Thus being, what dinosaurs can survive in the backrooms, let alone thrive in the backrooms. And to do so, I have a bracket system set up. But unfortunately, I can't put every single dinosaur in at a time. So I'll be doing 4 unique dinosaurs that I think could do well in certain situations or scenarios against the monsters in the backrooms. But first, let's see in what order and what monsters they will be fighting in the backrooms. But before I do that, let me explain how the bracket system works. Each dinosaur will be going against each monster one at a time, so they can't help each other or do duos or anything like that, as in reality they'd most likely want to fight each other more than the actual monster. Depending on how well they do, they'll get a score from 1 to 10. If they die, they get a 0, but they can still keep on fighting other monsters. So if they die, it doesn't mean they're dead, it just means that they would die in that scenario, and we move on. Whichever dinosaur has the highest score by the end wins. But what does it win? That may be a future video. So, what monsters will they be fighting? Well, in order, these will be the monsters they fight in the backrooms. Most of these are the most popular ones and the beginner ones, but there definitely no, how would I say this, pushover, I suppose. The first one would be the Kane's Pixel monster, followed by the Duller, the Hound, Skin Stealer, Scratchers, Wretchers, Window Monsters, Death Moth, and the Growler. I know they all sound a bit weird in terms of their names, but they're from the backroom, so what do you expect? Now the first dinosaur I'd like to mention, that's going into the backrooms, is the biggest out of them all. And the most surprising, as you'd think this wouldn't be able to fit, but I've got the smallest variant of it. This being Allosaurus europernus. It's named such because it's one of the only Allosauruses from Europe. As far as I know, it was as long as 7.5 meters, which is huge, that's one hell of a dinosaur, and yet it was the smallest of its species. It was about 4.5 meters tall and weighed 1.3 tons. That is more than the average cow, I'll tell you that much. Next up is the Dilophosaurus weatherthily. I didn't really need to say that because there's only one of them, so the species doesn't matter, but oh well. This dinosaur is known for all the wrong reasons, that being that it has a big thrill and being able to shoot poison, has a small crest and small body. In reality, it has a big body, that size of a grizzly bear, which is huge, with a massive crest, but sadly no poison or thrill, which would be cool, but there's no fossil evidence suggesting it. That's just something that they put in a movie and it's just stuck for a while. This animal typically reached around 7 meters long at largest and 2 meters tall, and was 1.1 tons at largest. Mind you, all these dinosaurs mentioned would be at their max estimate weight. So if the Dilophosaurus, for example, it was thought to be a lot less than 1 ton, being 0.6 tons, but at largest it's thought to be 1.1 tons. That's why I've put it down as 1.1 tons. This thing was the size, and when I say the size, almost like the exact same as a grizzly bear, just put into a dinosaur. Maybe I should make a fight about them two. Grizzly bear versus Dilophosaurus. Foreshadowing. Anyway, next is the Styracosaurus alberrensis, the only herbivore making its way into the backrooms. It's also the heaviest, and was in fact so famous at one point and or popular, it was in a King Kong movie from 1930s and 1940s, and it was more popular than the actual Triceratops originally. This was the main ceratopsian, until Triceratops came and now it's taken all the fame and glory. This dinosaur would have reached lengths of 5.5 meters, which is not very long for how heavy and built this dinosaur is. It's also only 1.8 meters tall, so it's a short, stout, not very long dinosaur with a massive estimated weight of 2.9 tons. But this dinosaur certainly was not a pushover. It was almost like a brick wall with a spike in front of it. this could have shattered some bones, especially in terms of humans. And I'm sure it will fare well or do its best in the backrooms. But moving on, for the final dinosaur, it's a raptoroid. So it's going to be pretty lightweight, and it's actually human-sized. This is the thing that they based the velociraptors from Jurassic Park off of. It's the Deinonychus. In specific, it is the Deinonychus centaureolopus. I probably butchered that name, but oh well. This dinosaur would have reached around 3.4 meters long and 1.6 meters tall, but it was probably very lightweight. At max estimate, it is seen as 0.1 tons, which is a lot lighter than the lightest one here. That is about 11 times lighter than the Dilophosaurus. So it's certainly gonna get its, how would you say it? It's definitely gonna have its, a run for its money, I suppose, if dinosaurs have money. This was probably a dinosaur that had feathers and more or less built like modern day animals, or should I say birds, mixed in with dinosaurs. But it's going to be interesting to see how it fares, as it would probably be one of the more intelligent ones here, unlike the Styracosaurus, which would definitely be the most, no offense to it, stupid or dull, due to it being a herbivore. It doesn't strategize to hunt, so they kind of just didn't need to build that intelligence. With all of that said and done, let's get right into it. The Allosaurus is up first. After it's been sleeping, it suddenly wakes up in this yellow place with damp floors, yellow fuzzy looking walls with humming lights. It's first confused, looking at the walls, maybe bashing against one or two, but it moves through the maze, I suppose you could say, until it hears something running towards it. This is no other than the King's Pixel monster. It comes running at the Allosaurus, being similar weight, a lot taller but a lot more skinny. The Allosaurus probably had enough bite force to break or at least pull through metal, and because the Pixel monster is just made out of wires and metal, I'm pretty sure the Allosaurus should be able to take it pretty easily. The fact that he's going to get jumped at first is going to disorient him, making him more defensive than wanting to harm said monster, but after a while he'll get his grip back, I guess you could say, and he would win with a 7 out of 10 in my books, which is pretty high on the scale. And I feel like because he's so big, not much is going to be able to hurt him in the backrooms, but maybe some might. We'll see. And the same goes for this next one, the Dilophosaurus. Since it's such a big animal, it would probably be like the same as the Allosaurus, but just wouldn't hit any walls on the way past. He would just walk through and not be scared. He'd be definitely more confident. He'd be curious about this new area or space, but he wouldn't be stunned. And before he knows it, he also hears something running towards him, and it's obviously the same monster, that being the King's Pixel monster. But here's the thing, he's similar weight to the Allo, but he's quite a bit smaller, basically making him almost defenseless at first, because once he gets grabbed, he's probably going to be pushed down to the floor and he's going to be able to fight back. And once his head is onto the floor and he can't bite, he's not going to be able to do much. But I do think eventually the King's Pixel monster will have enough of scratching and pushing him on the floor and try to lift him up and bite him or throw him. And I think that's where it's all going to go wrong for the King's Pixel monster. I think that the Dilophosaurus is just going to be too heavy for the King's Pixel monster to just throw around. And I think eventually the Dilophosaurus is just going to overpower it. It might be a lot taller than the Dilophosaurus, but the Dilophosaurus has weight to it for being such a small carnivore. And I think after a while, they'll just both fight each other and tire each other out. And if not, the Dilophosaurus would eventually win, just thrashing and biting around. But he would do it with not much left of him. He would certainly be injured, if not die after the match. So I'm only giving him a 2 out of 10, which is not high, but it's better than 0. Next up is the Styracosaurus. And its fight is going to be different to any of the other carnivores, like the Dilophosaurus or Allosaurus. At first, it's going to be panicked and be disoriented, and probably run around hitting walls by accident, just out of pure panic. But after a while, he would just start to walk around, but he'd stay in the same place, making the pixel monster have trouble finding him as he wouldn't move far, but after a while they would. And at first, I think the King's pixel monster is going to run up to it pretty easily, but once the Styracosaurus feels something grab it, it is going to thrash around like a bull, probably panic and bump around all over the room until it sees the monster. Once the monster is probably on the floor and gets back up and is ready to charge, it's going to be surprised by a hit from a 3-ton animal, and it would not be instantly dead, but it would be crippled, it would be down, and the Styracosaurus would panic and run away, or just kill the beast there and then. Of course, the Styracosaurus is going to be panicked, and he's probably going to be very dizzy after the fight, after running around in a couple circles and being hit once or twice, but he'll make it in pretty easily, doing better than the Allosaurus with an 8 out of 10, just out the fact that he's built like a brute, and this is basically a metal stick with some wires in it. Styracosaurus moves on with not much difficulty. And next up is going to be the Deinonychus, or Deinonychus, whichever way you want to say it. And this might not fare well for it, as the reality is it is a lot less weight than any of the others, and is twice as small as the Dilophosaurus in terms of size, and 11 times smaller in terms of weight, as mentioned before. So at first it's obviously going to be like the other predators, we're walking around looking for some area to sleep that isn't damp, or just looking around for any meal or water, and then it hears it. The Cain's pixel monster comes running behind a wall, shocking the absolute Scheißenhausen out of it. And out of pure instinct, it is going to run away. And maybe it will stay like a couple meters away after running. So it'll most likely run away and just never look back. But there's a possibility it'll run away and stop and to look at it. And all it see is the Cain's pixel monster running towards it. And out of pure panic, it doesn't run away, it runs to fight it. This is just a very unlikely scenario, but it might happen. And to be honest, if it gets grabbed, it's done for. The Deinonychus is just getting grabbed and tossed around and getting his bones shattered. Mind you, this thing kills humans for a living, basically, and this is a turkey that's huge with claws that's near the same weight as a human. But if it does dodge some initial attacks, it'll start to understand the pattern of its attacks and be able to dodge them. But it won't be able to do much damage. The only way I see the Deinonychus winning is if it jumps up really high and goes on top of its head, hitting it with such force that it falls over, and somehow, very unluckily, hits its head against the wall, full speed, mind you, full pelt from the Deinonychus, and it dies. And the Deinonychus would still be injured from the impact of hitting it. So I don't see the Deinonychus winning most times, which means I'm going to have to sadly give the one I'm probably voting for. Yeah, I'm probably voting for the Deinonychus, a 0. Sorry, Deinonychus, but a 0 out of 10 you will just have to live with. But it is only the first round, so you never know, I suppose. Before we continue, I'd just like to mention that that was level 0, and now they'll be going to level 1. Level 1 has 3 different monsters in it. One of these being the next monsters, obviously. But really quickly, please remember to click that subscribe button and the like button, as it helps me out, as it is my first ever video, so the more likes I see, the more I'll be posting content like this, I suppose. And I hope you all enjoy the video, and don't forget to share as well. Okay, so next up is the Duller. And the Duller is a weird creature, as it stays in puddles and waits for people to come towards it for a drink, and then it'll come bursting out the puddle, trying to grab you and pull you in. Not into the puddle, just into itself, and it most likely suffocate you or just hit you to death as some normal creature. And it is extremely fragile. as fragile as a human, which I know doesn't sound fragile, but it is much taller than your average human, but it's really skinny and bony, which is not going to help it. It's kind of like the first monster, but less dangerous. So first up is the Allosaurus. How does the Allosaurus fare? Pretty easily. If it gets jumped and grabs on, which these creatures don't let go no matter what. It doesn't matter what's happened. It's like sticky glue. You just can't get free from it. Once the Allosaurus gets grabbed, it's just going to slash and bite it, and it's probably going to bite clean through it. And at worst, it might get shocked and try and run away, be grabbed and pulled to the ground. By the way, it's probably going to get hurt a little from the tension it's grabbed it with. And therefore, I've just got to give it a 9 out of 10. It would be a 10, but unless the Allosaurus runs up to it first and kills it immediately, it doesn't count as a 10. So Allosaurus moves are on with literally no difficulty. So next up would be the Dilophosaurus. And it's not going to have a hard time. It's going to have a harder time than the Allosaurus just because it's smaller. It's going to take a bit more effort to get free, but it's going to essentially do the same. Once the Duller comes jumping out the water, it's probably going to get shocked and might be able to get out fast enough, but I highly doubt it. There's only one dinosaur I could think of that could do that, but we'll get to him in a minute or two. At first he'd just get grabbed and his head would be pulled down. He'd probably panic and try and, let him to let go, but it wouldn't happen. And to be honest, I just see the Dilophosaurus panicking and jumping towards it and biting it, which would make the monster scream pain and grab even tighter, which would make the Dilophosaurus bite even tighter and eventually just bite straight through it. And that would be the death of the Duller. The Duller would be dead and it would probably be forced to let go because it wouldn't be able to hold on. It would just be dead. And Dilophosaurus, just because he has a bit more of a hard time, I was debating whether or not to give him 7 points or 8 points out of 10, but I'll give him, I'm just made myself second guess my opinion now. Yeah, no, I'll give him an 8 out of 10, just because of the fact it's the same situation as the Allosaurus. He just does it a little harder, that's all. And the next up is Styracosaurus, and I don't even need to go why. He completely goes through this with no problem. He goes in for a drink and gets grabbed, maybe on his thrill, but if he gets grabbed on his thrill, his spike is enraged and he's just going to spike it and it'll instantly die. Or it grabs one of the spikes on its thrill. Yes, Styracosaurus has kind of like a thrill with spikes on each little bit of the thrill, and it would just grab the thrill and be stuck. It'd literally just be stuck and horned onto the Styracosaurus, and that would be it. And it would be horned again. Either way, I don't see Styracosaurus really having any problem. It might panic and rush his head around, but that's just going to make the Duller get hit even more into the thrill and die. I don't actually see the Styracosaurus getting hurt in any way. He might be grabbed a little tighter, but he just can't be hurt. His skin is too tough. His thrill's too tough. He has horns all over him. And it's going to be his front of his face going to be grabbed. And even if... Sorry, there was a plane going over my house. Even if it grabs it near the mouth, it still has a powerful beak and it could just tromp straight through the hand. So with 10 out of 10 points, it moves on. Next up is the Deinonychus. And honestly, the Deinonychus goes through as well. Not that much difficulty. Don't get me wrong, it would be hard, because once he gets grabbed, he's going to be stuck, and he's not going to be able to move, and because he's a lot lighter, he can't thrash around. And because this thing is used to dealing with humans, it's not going to be that threatened by the Deinonychus. But there's also the chance that the Deinonychus doesn't even get grabbed. He might just go off and run away, or be startled and just attack him. And honestly, I think if he gets startled and just attacks him, I think he's killed him. Honestly, he's just really fragile. He just takes a couple scratches and a couple good bites from the Deinonychus and he's out. I also think that the Deinonychus, once he is grabbed, he will probably be grabbed on the head or body, since it's way easier to grab him in those areas. And even then, his claws and sickles on his feet, they'll just go straight through the monster and cut it open like a machete to a sandbag, and all of its things will come out, and that's disgusting and gruesome. But the Deinonychus will have a lot more trouble due to it being a lot smaller and might be grabbed. But honestly, it could do as well as the Cryolophosaurus or even Allosaurus if it really did its best, just instant kill. But it's most likely to have a bit of trouble dealing with it, which is why I am giving it not a 7, but making me rethink myself here. I'm giving it a 6. Just because of the fact that if it is crabbed, it is going to have a lot of trouble trying to get out. And that would be more of a 4 or 5 points out of 10. But because overall he would do closer to a 7 or 8, I'm just going to give him the average and give him 6 points out of 10. The next monster in level 1 is none other than the hideous looking human grotesque hound. This thing is big for a dog-like creature, I suppose, like average if not a little bit bigger than usual for a dog-like creature, but is basically a dog that's a human, that's as fragile as your human or as your normal dog. It's a lot creepy and it's a lot faster than most other things here, so we'll see how well they fare. So up first, it's the Allosaurus. Now at first encounter, the Allosaurus wouldn't even see it. It would hear it, as this thing kind of growls and grunts when walking past different objects and walls and anything really. It's kind of like one of its things that it just does naturally. The Allosaurus would hear this and also sense the vibrations in the ground of the thing, and it would get curious but be more cautious and probably just wait for it to come around the corner, or maybe even stepping back, or maybe getting this curiosity the best of it and stepping forward. And that's when it'll pounce. Pounces on the Allosaurus and does nothing. If not, it just scares the Allosaurus, and the Allosaurus thrashes around and hits it off of him, and it goes flying into a wall. Not crippling the poor hound, but definitely hurting it to a certain extent. The hound sees this but doesn't back up or back away in any way, and it lunges again, this time a bit slower from the pain. And that's when the Allosaurus either steps back and runs away because it's grotesque looking, and then if they encounter again he kills it, or he kills it there and then one simple bite and probably grabs it in place and then bites it. Kind of like you when you see a Happy Meal. Making me give the Allosaurus a 9 out of 10 yet again, as it probably would barely take any damage, if not at all, but it would certainly somehow hurt itself in some way, as in its natural environment it doesn't run into anything remotely close to it. At least with the others, they were tall and had the same thing going for them. This is a completely different thing that he hasn't seen yet, and you definitely get spooked or startled, which is why I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. But he's really close to having a 10 out of 10 on this one. So next up is the one and only Dilophosaurus. I actually said it right this time. The Dilophosaurus is going to have a harder time than the Allosaurus, but still ragdoll this dog around, or hound I should say, humanoid, grotesque looking thing. The reality is it's going to have the same situation under scenario. It's going to pounce on the Dilophosaurus, and honestly I see the Dilophosaurus being small enough to dodge its attack, or at least react fast enough that it'll kind of just either dodge the hound and kill it there and then, just pin it down and kill it, or it will duck under, or maybe just grab it as it pounces at it mid-air and just kill off there and then. I think the Dilophosaurus won't have any trouble with this at all. At worst case scenario, the hand actually ends up hitting the Dilophosaurus grabs it, throws it on the ground and instantly kill it. And I don't see the Dilophosaurus losing or getting hurt in any way possible. So I've got to give the Dilophosaurus a simple 9 out of 10. Next up is the Styracosaurus. And you'd think this beast of an animal would be able to kill the hound pretty easily. But you thought wrong, as the hound is a very fast and agile competitor to the Styracosaurus. It's like a giant versus a jaguar, I suppose. For some reason, that's the first thing that came to my head. Sure, the Styracosaurus is going to be the brute one in this fight, and it's going to land the more crucial hits. The hound is going to be able to dodge him, and since it's always a bit more narrow than the others, it's probably going to make its way around and bite the Styracosaurus at the back and everywhere really. It's going to give the Styracosaurus a hard time. Styracosaurus will end up killing the hound just because of pure stamina and being able to outlast the hound, as in they'd both be fighting to the end. but eventually the Stegosaurus will get a good hit and end it there and then. But the Hound is going to get a lot of good hits, biting into the back, the sides, the tail, the back of the head, possibly even the neck of the Stegosaurus. Highly doubt it because of his thrill and the spikes on his thrill and everything, but I honestly think the Stegosaurus is going to have a really hard time with this one. But in the other case, he gets one good hit near the beginning and he's ran it, but it's going to be hard for him to get a good hit. As remember, the Hound could come from any direction. So how am I going to rate this? One case he could kill it instantly and you'll be over just like that, done and dusted. Or there's the case that the Hound tires him out to the point that he's not just barely living, he's fine, he's just got a lot of scars and wounds. And honestly, I'm giving the Stegosaurus a 6 out of 10. I was debating whether or not to give him an 8 or a 7, but the more I thought into it, the more I realised the Hound would actually be an okay opponent against the Stegosaurus. And I'm giving him a 6 out of 10 just because of how long it would take. There could be 6 Hounds and I still think the Stegosaurus could win. It'd just be a lot harder for him. Okay, moving on to the next one. And next up is obviously the Deinonychus. And honestly, I think it's gonna have an okay experience. It's used to having other raptors around it, and this is the same thing, essentially, just in a dog form. Maybe even a little smaller, probably weighing around the same, if not a bit more. Initially, the Deinonychus is going to be a bit shocked with it once it gets surprised, and it's going to have a bit of a fight and a scramble. But honestly, one bite to the neck and this thing's dead. And because this has more of a human jaw, it's not going to be that effective of a biting. But it's going to bite pretty alright. So honestly, Deinonychus is going to make it through with some sort of difficulty, but it's not going to be that hard. So that's why I'm actually going to give it the same as the Stegosaurus with a 6 out of 10. Just because of the fact that it's used to things similar to size to it at home, that is. And with all of that done and said, we have one final dinosaur for part 1. Yes, it's going to be a 2-part series. I'm sorry for that. I wanted to fit all in this video, but it would be like an hour long. So here goes nothing with the next, final beast of level 1 and this video. This beast is known as the Skin Stealer. Probably one of the most popular ones apart from the Pixel Monster. This thing is also another tall humanoid figure, maybe just not as tall as the rest so far, apart from the dog. Obviously it's taller than the dog. And it's got a mouth, usually in most artists' opinions and other people's opinions, it's got a mouth going straight down to its belly, and its head is literally just a mouth. And this thing is strong, very strong, and it's got a lot of skin on it. Reason why it has the name Skin Stealer. So it's going to be quite tough to go through, but it obviously, because it's made out of humanish skin, it's going to be very easy to cut through, which may be good for 1, 2, 3 or all 4 of these dinosaurs. And obviously starting off with Allosaurus. And honestly, I think the Allosaurus will fare pretty well. And I think he might actually have a shock at first. As he first looks at this creature, it looks like the second one he fought, and the first one he fought, and the third. Kind of looks like a mix of all of them. And he realises how tall he is, and he's just going to do his usual thing, which is just bite it. And at first it works, it just cuts straight through clean, and he lets go, or bites through clean, and one half of the Skinwalker's body is gone. And Skinwalker is not just going to let that happen, he'll be thrashing everything. But he realises how much stronger this beast is. The Skinwalker will probably actually hit the Allo off, now that I think about it, and will go haywire on the Allosaurus, starting to beat the absolute living Scheisenhausen out of it. And after a while, the Allosaurus would have killed the Skinwalker, but it definitely wouldn't have been easy. The Skinwalker would put up a fight due to its insane strength for what it is, but because it's made out of human skin, it'll kind of just fight to the point that it's just cut up into tiny little pieces. So the Allosaurus moves on with... It's hard to say, as on one hand he could just take it after a little bit, just bite him in half, but he's going to get overwhelmed. So I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10. And next up would therefore be Dilophosaurus. And at first, I think the Skinwalker would grab the Dilophosaurus and Dilophosaurus would be confused, and suddenly it feels a sharp bite. That would be the Skinwalker trying to bite it. Dilophosaurus would get this bite and it would probably be deep-ish. It would definitely penetrate the skin a little. Dilophosaurus would bite him back and probably go straight through the flesh, ripping the flesh off and probably making him fall, since the legs would be the closest thing to him. And after that, it would kind of just be a slugfest of him trying to hit the Dilophosaurus but also keep it away whilst the Dilophosaurus is ripping it up. And I see that going every single time. Either that or the Dilophosaurus just able to dodge its attack and it does it even easier. The Skinwalker is definitely not going to just be pushed around for no reason. It's going to fight back, but it's going to be a little harder than the Allosaurus's go, but it's definitely not going to be too hard at all, as it's just this. It's literally just the same thing as the Allosaurus, just a lot smaller. So I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10. And next up, it would be the Styracosaurus, and this is where it all goes wrong for the Skinwalker. Even worse, as the Skinwalker would try and maybe tip it over from the side or come from the front, and it might successfully do so, but then it goes all wrong, as it's literally just a piece of flesh with a big mouth, and since it's a carnivore, I'm pretty sure the Styracosaurus will sense this and it will just hit it down like it's tried to do with every other one. And because it's got a big horn, it's a moving brick, like I said, it's a moving brick wall with a horn on it. It's going to pierce and slam that body of flesh to the ground, and it's just going to trample it or horn it and thrill it, do anything to it to death. And that'll just be the end of the Skinwalker. And the Skinwalker will maybe push around, give it a couple hits, but it's gone before you know it. It's a 9 out of 10 for the Styracosaurus. And lastly, but not least, to end this video of part 1, as there will definitely be a part 2 to finish us off, it's the one and only Deinonychus. And the Deinonychus is going to have a harder time than the rest due to it just being lightweight. Honestly, this thing is used to killing humans, and the Deinonychus is human, not sized, not shaped, but weight, I suppose. And the Skinwalker first is going to overpower the Deinonychus until the Deinonychus realizes how squishy its flesh is, and that's when the Deinonychus will tear through its skin. And honestly, the reason why I think the Deinonychus isn't going to do too well is because at first he's just going to thrash around, but he's going to be suffocated at first, and he's just not going to be able to do anything. And he's also going to be getting bitten, and because of how small he is, it's going to do a lot of hurt and a lot of damage to him. It's going to affect the way the Deinonychus fights for the rest of the fight a lot. And I think the Deinonychus will pull a win, but it's going to be very harmful. And if there were 2 or more Skinwalkers, the Deinonychus would stand no chance. But because of the fact that they have fleshy humanoid skin, I think after a while, after thrashing well enough, I suppose, he will win. And because it's made out of human skin and all of that, but the Deinonychus is so small and fragile and could easily be pummeled. Because this thing has super strength, basically, it's going to be hurt a lot. That's why I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. Oh, my poor Deinonychus. And with that, it's the end of part 1. But before you go, really quickly, I would just like to say the scores of each individual dinosaur from worst to best, starting off with the worst, that being a Deinonychus with an overall score so far, it could change and it could end up winning, of 15, not even being in the 20s yet. In second, with a 26, it is Dilophosaurus, only because of his first round. Apart from that, he is doing pretty well. And drawing for first place, surprisingly, is Styracosaurus and Allosaurus, just because that Styracosaurus fumbled a bit near the third one, or at the third one, sorry, and Allosaurus having a bit of a hard time near the first. So both in the lead with 33, then Dilophosaurus with 26, and Deinonychus with 15. I hope you all enjoyed my first ever video and part 1 to the 2-part series, and I hope to see you on the next one. And until then, goodbye.